Thank you so much for coming back and joining us for this week's class on learning hieroglyphics at home. Doodling with purpose, because, if you ever visit Egypt, hey, it'll come in handy. All right, before we jump in today, I screwed up. I screwed up on the homework from last night. I left out a letter in a word. You may have figured this out already. If you haven't, we'll get to my screw up in a minute. So let's look at last week's homework and do a transliteration and then a translation. That's the proper way to understand hieroglyphics is first to write out all the letters and then figure out what the meaning of the word is. All right, so as an example, the very first word here, we have our pool, our foot, and our vulture. So that's going to be Saba, and then the determinative is written, you would write that out just like you would the syllables. So that's the word for food, because it's got bread there at the end. That's the determinative with the 3 strokes, so it's multiples. It's not just one piece of food, it's multiple foods. So yes, I tried to find ways to combine vocabulary from the last week into a sentence. What can I say? All right, we'll get to my mistake in a moment. The second word, pool, followed by the water sign with the multiple waves, which is MW. We haven't gotten to that in this half of the class, but we covered it last time. Followed by Ra, the sun, which is a determinative. So this is Shemu, which is summer. All right, now I've added that letter that I screwed up on in blue there. I should have put a H flax sign there. I forgot. What can I say? I made a mistake. Hopefully it didn't screw you up on the homework too much, and I'll try not to do that going forward. So this is S-A-H, and again, remembering the accent signs, so this would be the word for mummy, the determinative being a person standing upright, standing still. So no legs, it's a mummy. So there you go. That means this would translate, now that we have the correct words, as the mummy's summer food. Or literally in Egyptian, food, summer, mummy, because there's no articles and because the nouns come after the verbs. All right, so speaking of writing out the correct accent marks, that's sort of the focus of this half of the class. The first half, the first 100 episodes, we just ran through writing the actual letters. We're really working on the correct pronunciation of those letters now, since it's not just A and A. Some of them only have one pronunciation, like K, which is K, with the basket with a handle, like Ki. And then we have the hill, which is Kua, like queen. It's still noted as K, but you'll see there's a little dot under the K. And then we had our lion, added late in the game for Alexander and Cleopatra, who needed L's. So this is L, like lion. Then we have the owl, M, like mom. And both L and M have just one pronunciation. The same with N and R. And the wave is N, like now. And the open mouth, R, like run. Then, now we get into the T's. The first T is actually pronounced like a Z, like Z, Tz, like zoo. And it's a door bolt. Then we have the S, the proper S, like tss, like multiple S's together. S is in sock. This is the bolt of cloth that kind of looks like a candy cane, but should be drawn as 2 lines with then the connector. And then we have the pool, which is shh, like you're holding up to your mouth and going like, be quiet, like show. So this is SH written as S with a V mark over it. Now we get into our T's that we did last week. So first we have the loaf or the hill with a capital T. I'm sorry, not last week. This is what we're about to get into this week. Then we have the T with the line under it. That is the donkey hobble. And the W, which is a chick. A little different from the vulture. And this is an important letter because of how it hangs on to plurals and, well, I guess small and evil words. And then finally we have Y, which is 2 papyrus leaves. You've already learned how to draw 1 for the letter I. Y is just 2 of them doubled up. So pretty easy one to do. See, look at how far we've come. You've been, 13 episodes into the second half of this class, and you already know the entire hieroglyphic 1-syllable alphabet. All right, so let's look at those new ones for today. First, the proper T, which is the loaf or the hill. Pretty simple to draw, straight line with a curve over it. I didn't bother to draw the arrow marks because I think this one's pretty simple. Now, one of the things about this one is it's important to usually mark this as a capital T, because if you're writing it out with a lowercase t, that can be confused for some other symbol, such as the Christian cross, which can also be the quartering of the universe into active and passive principles, and also the Egyptian cross, which is actually also called an ankh. Not quite a cross, but again, you don't want your transliteration to be mixed up for either of these symbols. So that's why it's always a good idea when doing T to write a capital T in your transliteration versus a lowercase. It could be mistaken for a religious symbol or a scientific symbol or, well, an ancient Egyptian sandal tie, which also means life. But that's a YouTube Doodling with Purpose video for another time. All right, let's look at some words with this new T. So here we have T, then we have the chick, W, and then another T, followed by this determinative. We've seen it before. We saw it last week. Remember for mummy? So what do you think this is the word for? We know that the determinative can also mean mummy, and in this case it's something else that stands upright and still and doesn't move. So it's statue. It uses the same determinative, and pretty much any time you have a person, even if it's a person standing still, at the end of a word, it's almost always, well, pretty much always is a determinative. And you can sometimes figure out the word based on the pose. All right, our next T is more of a T sound, like a TZ. And this is a horse or donkey hobble, is what it's called. It's this. It's basically two looped pieces of string that you would put around a pack animal or a beast of burden to keep it from running away or running too fast. So they used these in ancient Egypt just as we use them today, and it was a great way of keeping your animals, in one place. So that's the T. So this is a T with a line under it, is how you write it, and it's more pronounced ts, like with a Z in it. So like you combine the Z and the T, and your tongue sort of whistles it. So it's like a TJ would be one way of writing out. So tch, more like a, kind of comes out like a Z. I guess you could pronounce it as ch, would be one way if you were going to write it out trying to use English letters. Like I said, there's a lot of symbols in hieroglyphics that don't quite have an equivalent in English. This is drawn pretty easily. First you have that U shape for the rope, and then you just draw two circles for the two hobble ties. So pretty easy one to draw, and actually one that's kind of fun because it's always kind of cool to have little two circles that connect. I don't know. What can I say? Some of the glyphs are just more fun to draw than the others. It's not like I made this up. They just physically are. All right, so continuing with our vocabulary. So see if you could do this one based on the determinative. Here we have t, followed by the door bolt, the Z, and then the M. So this would be sm. And based on the determinative there at the end, what do you think this word is? Remember, if there's an animal at the end as a determinative, it's pretty much always the word for that animal. It's one of the cool hints that is baked into hieroglyphics. So if we were going to pronounce this word, it would be chism. Chism, chism. And it's hard, there's no vowels. That's why it's always good to transliterate. So this is the word for dog. This means dog. Did I do a good job drawing a dog? That's what the determinative is. And again, that's a good way to, if you don't know what the word is and you come across it, just look at the determinative and say, okay, well, maybe it's canine, but in this case, dog. All right, wrapping up the single consonants is W. So this is one that we talked about a few moments ago. The W is also added to plurals and to words meaning evil or small or insignificant. It's drawn a little bit different from the regular birds. First you start with the beak with an arrow down and then diagonally down. Then the back of the bird's head is sort of a swoop going back up. Then you connect at the end of that tail and bring up the belly of the bird, going back up towards the beak in your third stroke. And then simply just add the legs and something to stand on with stroke 4, 5, and 6, going down at the angles and then across for the floor. That's how you draw the chick for W, the chick meaning a baby bird, if you will. All right, so again, let's look at this word and look at the determinative to see if we can figure it out. So here we have a man kneeling with a vase over him pouring water. The word is W-A-B, wa'ab, and again the A has that dash over it to show you how to pronounce the A. So this might mean man pouring water, maybe, but based on your guess with the determinative, it's the word for purification. So he's purifying is what he's doing by pouring water. So yeah, maybe it meant, pouring water. Maybe it means throwing water. Those would all be good guesses. And again, it's the ultimate hint is those determinatives at the end of the word to help you figure out your vocabulary. Because if you can't memorize the vocabulary, which is not always going to be easy. Finally, Y, which is 2 papyrus leaves. We already did 1 papyrus leaf, as I noted, for I, so you just double them up. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this one since it's pretty much just taking a glyph you already know and writing 2 of them next to each other. All right, so homework for this week. Here you go. Here is a new word, just to give you a hint. Since we haven't covered all of these letters in the second half, that first letter is MR. So that's the hoe. We'll get to that, the garden hoe. We'll get to that in a few lessons, but if you were in the first half of the class, you recognize that one. All right, see if you can transliterate and translate that. We'll be back next week. Like, share, love this channel. Everything you can do to support it is most appreciated. Leave your comments and questions below, and I'll make sure to answer them back. Thanks for watching, and keep doodling with purpose.